Think back to your school days. Remember that red or pink vertical line running down the left side of every single notebook page. Your teachers probably scolded you if you dared to write your answers outside of it. They told you the margin was there to keep your work neat, or to give them a clean space to write grades and comments. But the truth is they were wrong. The notebook margin was never invented for teachers, and it wasn't designed for neatness. It was actually engineered as a shield against a silent, furry predator that used to destroy human knowledge. If it weren't for that exact line, some of history's greatest ideas, formulas, and stories would have been completely lost to time. To understand why that line exists, we have to travel back to the 18th and 19th centuries. This was a time long before digital clouds, hard drives, or plastic storage bins. Back then, paper was everything. If you wrote a masterpiece, a business ledger, or a personal diary, that physical stack of paper was the only copy in existence anywhere in the world. But humans shared their homes, offices, and libraries with millions of uninvited roommates, rats and mice. And during long, cold winters, a thick stack of paper wasn't just paper to a starving rodent. It was a 5-star buffet. However, rodents have a very specific eating habit. They never start chewing a book from the middle, they always start from the outer edges because the corners are the easiest to grip and gnaw on. They would slowly chew their way inward, layer by layer. Imagine being a merchant, a scientist, or a writer during that era. Because paper was expensive, you would naturally start writing from the absolute edge of the page to save space. Then you wake up one morning, open your journal, and realize a rat has chewed off the first 3 words of every single sentence you wrote over the last 3 years. It was an absolute catastrophe. Crucial legal documents were ruined, tax logs became unreadable, and irreplaceable history was turned into nest insulation for pests. The world desperately needed a solution. That is when paper manufacturers came up with a brilliant psychological trick. They realized they couldn't stop the rats from chewing, but they could control what the rats actually ate. They decided to create a sacrifice zone. They began printing a mandatory vertical line down the page and instructed everyone, "Whatever you do, do not write past this line. Leave this space completely blank." This empty border acted as a literal buffer zone. If a hungry rat got into a desk and chewed up the outer 2 inches of a notebook, the owner would lose a chunk of paper, but the actual text written safely behind the line would remain completely untouched. The margin was quite literally a life insurance policy against rodents. Eventually, the world modernized. We invented exterminators, plastic bins, and computers. The threat of rats eating our homework mostly vanished. But habits die hard. By the time modern notebooks were mass-produced, the margin had been around for so long that people just assumed it belonged there. Teachers co-opted it for grading, and society forgot its survivalist origin story entirely. So, the next time you open a notebook and see that line, remember that you aren't looking at a tool for neatness. You are looking at a centuries-old piece of defensive engineering that saved human history from being eaten alive.